Hello, everybody from Kansas City. My name is Rich Matthews, and I'm the Powerhouse Pastor. And today I kind of wanted to address the issue of revival. Now, I want to preface everything that I'm going to say as, this is my opinion. I believe I have good reasons for the opinions that I have, and I do not believe revival is a bad thing. That would be a silly, nonsensical position to take, especially in our charismatic tradition, um, to believe that an unusual move of the Spirit that awakens hearts to the presence of the Lord would ever be a bad thing is dumb, and I don't believe that. However, I don't believe revivalism is necessarily a good discipline, and I'll tell you why. Revivalism, in my opinion, or I guess in my experience, revivalism is about contending. It's about contending for this move of God. It's about looking back into the past and seeing how the Lord's moved and trying to isolate um, patterns, maybe, or equations, um, to develop some sort of a spiritual calculus to get the same sort of environment where the Spirit of the Lord is going to move in a similar way. I think that's dangerous, mainly because I think we take our eyes off the primary objective in that case. You can look back at the great revivals of history, and you can always see that there's prayer that was involved. There was fasting that was involved. There was the preaching of the gospel, the revelation of the love and the mercy and the judgment and the justice of God. They're all, in varying forms present in those movements. But I wonder if we could go back in time to talk to the people involved in those early movements and ask them why were they praying? Why were they fasting? Um, why were they preaching the gospel? Were they gripped by, they heard a story about a revival and they wanted to see it there? And you can always paint, and I think most revivalist leaders, they're not just after an experience, but ultimately ends up being about an experience, because they say, well, hey, in this experience there is a greater potency of the power of the Holy Spirit to change lives. And I'm like, maybe there is. But what if we're getting off focus? What if we talk to those people and it came down to, no, we just really love Jesus. We became enamored with this person who is God, and we were not trying to elicit a an environment where something was going to happen. We were trying to interact with a person that we fell in love with. Remember, prayer isn't about don't approach a prayer life from a formulaic standpoint trying to get something. Prayer is talking to God, and if we are gripped by any sort of revelation of the beauty of God, then that becomes our motivation for prayer. Um, so, in that case, I think revivalism might be not great, because what it ends up doing, it ends up, if you sit there and you isolate, okay, what happened? Let's take the Great Awakening. What happened in the Great Awakening? Well, what happened before the Great Awakening? What set up this environment for the Great Awakening to happen? And then you go, and if you're a leader, you construct an apparatus, and you start putting, it's almost like you're putting pressure on people to the replicate the environment, so that you end up heaping striving on people. You end up heaping responsibility on people. And the obvious question comes when, what if it's delayed? What if it's not happening? Well, then there's an obvious answer. You're not doing the math right. Maybe there's a faith issue, or there's a holiness issue, or there's there's a wholeheartedness issue, or there you start looking through all of your behavior patterns and you start trying to isolate the thing that is hindering the move of God, and it robs the power of grace in our lives to grow into Him who is the head. I don't believe, and I know this is my opinion, I don't believe our Father in heaven is concerned with that expression as much as inviting us into His being as revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, doing justice, loving mercy, walking humbly with your God, finding that righteousness, peace, and joy that comes from the Holy Spirit, living in that reality. And then as we learn to love God well, and through the love of God to love people well, and we start going with the flow of the Spirit in our lives, maybe you just end up in a place where the revival happens. But it's like coasting downhill in a bicycle race. Every seasoned bike rider knows that downhill grade, it's not going to last forever. There's another uphill grade coming. So you got to get ready to pedal again. Don't get comfortable in that place. And if you run into that revival, rejoice in it. Praise Jesus. I am surrounded by this unusual move of the Spirit. But ultimately, there's going to come a day where we get up, we put on our shoes, and we walk back out into the world to do justice, love, mercy, walk humbly with the God, with righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. That's not necessarily accompanied by the fireworks of revival. And that's good, and that's okay. To make our churches and our services and our ministry about attaining revival is problematic. Because Jesus isn't about revival. Jesus is about the manifestation of His Spirit in everyday life. So, again, I love revival. The revivals of history have been beautiful, and the revivals that are coming will be beautiful. But they're not the point. God bless you. I hope this was helpful. And if you didn't like it, God bless you too. Feel free to like and share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in a few days. God bless.